On this video, I'll be showing you the surface crochet technique to knitting up your neckline. So I'll be showing you 3 different methods to do this. The first one is on a double folded neck band. As you can see, this one right here, it's double folded, and you work the surface crochet simultaneously with the seaming down of the neckband. I'll be showing that one first. The second one is just some surface edging to hide the pickup line for your stitches, and it neatens the whole thing. More than anything, it makes your neckline even sturdier and firmer, and this is great for summer patterns like this one that I'm holding here. So I'll also be showing you how to do this simple one of just adding some surface crochet on your neckline. The third one is a little different because you first do the surface crocheting and then pick up the stitches afterwards. So you only have one loop showing on the neckline. It's sturdy and it's neat, and I'm sure you're gonna love it. Okay, so for the first method, I'll show you with a double folded neckband. This is twice the length of what I want my neckband to be. So I'll fold it down here, and you just make sure that it lines up with your first stitch that you picked up when you're doing your neckband, so that everything lines up and is neat and tidy. Once that is done, you go through your first stitch here and make sure that you also go through it over here. So this is quite fiddly, but it gets better as you go along. So you bring your hook over this way. So before we go very far, I've noticed that a lot of people hold their crochet hooks like this. I've never held it like that. When I was taught how to crochet, I was taught how to hold it like this. So this is how I hold my crochet hook. So I hope that won't be a distraction for people who are used to a different method of crocheting. And then you go in again on the next stitch and you do the same this side. So from this point on, really, it's not that complicated. The first few stitches are just a bit fiddly, but as you progress, it gets better. So the trick is to make sure that it's well lined up here on the inside, and you are working right on this pickup edge. So that's why it can be quite fiddly, because there are layers of fabric that you're working through, and they're not really the easiest to navigate, but the end results are worth it. So you keep doing that with every stitch. So it's much easier with 1x1 ribbing, because all you have to do is to just follow each stitch that you're working on, and then you do the same on the next one. Oopsie. You go through, and then you bring the hook back and you pass the stitch like that. So that's what you do all the way around. So let me work through these and we'll do the last few stitches together. Okay, so we've crocheted right to the end of our neckline, exactly where we first started. So I'll show you how to join this so that it has a very seamless look. So when you get to this point, let me bring this closer, you crochet into the first stitch that you did. That's how you end it. And since the first stitch was quite tight, it's going to be a bit tight, and you use your hook to pull through your yarn and you work this stitch. Okay, the next step will be cutting our yarn. I still have a bit of a tail left there. And then you pull through at this point. So as you can see, it now has a very seamless look. And then we are going to weave in this end. So we get this into the next stitch. So we're still trying to keep it as neat and tidy as we possibly can. So as you can see, it still looks good and seamless. Then we weave in our end on the inside. I normally just go anywhere where there is some form of a seam and this time I'll just go in over here and weave in a couple of times. Oops, let me fix that. So you just weave in a couple of times and then you cut the yarn. So it depends on the type of yarn you're using. If it's something that's very woolly and sticky, you don't even have to do a lot of stitches. Okay, then we cut as close as possible. So our neckline is done. Okay, there's been a fold here, but this is how it looks. So once you block it, it's going to straighten out and it will be even smoother here. But you now have this neat edge which you created whilst you were just joining the pickup row and the bind off row of your neck band. So this is how it looks. Okay, so now we're working on the second neckline. This one is a single neckline, so it's less complicated than the first one and less fiddly. So the first thing that you do when you leave that very long tail here at the end is to weave in the end down to the point where you need your yarn to start working the neckline, the surface crochet. So you get your hook right through. It's going to be fiddly for a while, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite relaxing. So you hook through and you bring it through to the other side, go through the next stitch. So you basically are finding some least resistance in your work and going through those areas. Some will be tougher than the others and some will be less so. So you keep going through your stitches like this. Then you go through another one. So the point of this edging is to hide the pickup line. So here in the back neck, it doesn't look bad at all because you're picking up on every stitch, but when you're looking at the sides, it may not look super neat, or even the front of your neckline. So this helps a lot. Let's keep going. You hook and you bring it through. Sometimes you'll catch some threads that you're not supposed to catch and you have to start afresh like now. But for those that are comfortable with crochet, this is going to be super easy. I rarely crochet except when I'm using it on my knitting or if I'm doing some granny square blankets. So you keep going like this. Okay, this one was too wide and off. Okay, you pull it through over here. Okay, so we have a few stitches, as you can see. I'll get back when I'm almost done and I'm right here so I can show you how you do the last stitches. Okay, so we're at the end of our crocheting and we are just where we started. So we do the same thing that we did with the first top. We go through this first stitch, so this can be seamless and joined and you don't see where the first stitch was when you're looking at the finished neckline. Okay, as I mentioned, it can be a bit tricky. It's not the smoothest process, particularly I guess for someone who doesn't crochet often. And then we pull through. At this point we will have to cut our yarn and pull it through. And then we weave in the same. So the last step is the one that's going to be a bit different on this one and I'll explain why. So we go in through the next stitch here so that it doesn't really show where the first stitch was. So it shows a little bit because there's this little thread here, but otherwise it's not very clear. So on the wrong side I'll just weave in along this line a couple of times. So this is cotton yarn, unlike the other one, which was merino, 100% merino wool. This is 100% cotton. So I handle this a bit differently. So when I'm done, I'll pull this off and then cut this a bit shorter. And the next step is to open this up. So it's a 2-ply. So I'll just try and open it up. Mostly I just use the needle to open these threads up. And then tie. The reason being, cotton doesn't really eventually felt or lay flat. It will poke out on the other side if you don't do this, or if you don't leave a much longer end. So once I've tied this on the inside, okay, it just broke off on its own. You can cut this off as close as possible, but not too close like what I did with the wool, because you don't want it to poke through if it comes off. So this is what you do at the end. So when it's done like this, it won't poke through on the other side and it won't unravel easily here. So this is how it looks at the back, and the front looks like this. So as you can see, the neckline looks more finished and neater. I love the look of this, and more than anything, I love the sturdiness that you get on the fabric. The last method is a bit different, so I'll just be using this little swatch here and I'll demonstrate how you make that work. So we want to work our surface crochet right along this edge here, and then we'll pick up the stitches later. I'll demonstrate all of that. So this is how this goes. It's actually very simple. And then you just keep working. All the way around. Or if it's a straight piece like this, but usually it's the neckline, so it's going to be on in the round. So I'll work my crochet right here. So as you can see, this line, this stitch, this bind of line is up here, and you're doing your crochet just under it. The whole point is to make sure that if there are any gaps, you hide them. So if this was a neckline, you'll also be working on the curve of the neckline, the back neck, and the center front, which is usually also straight, but for the most part you'll be navigating through stitches that are curved, not straight like this. So in this case, particularly when you're working on the back neck stitches, it's best to pick up on every stitch. So I noticed I was skipping some of the stitches there out of habit, but with the back neck I normally pick up every stitch and the center front. And then when you're doing the sides of the neck, that's when you can crochet on 3 stitches, skip 1, crochet on 2, skip 1. So for every 7 stitches you work 5, like what we do when we're picking up for the neckline. So this is how it goes. It's quite fiddly sometimes, but we'll get there. Okay, so I've done a few stitches. I'll be right back when I'm right at the end. Okay, so we're now at the end of our work. Let's just do these last few stitches and crochet right through them. And the last stitch there, and then we cut off our thread, our yarn, sorry, not thread, and pull through. So this will be right at the end of the neckline, same as it was here where you began. So I would normally tie these ends together and then weave them in later. So once you've done the stage, the next thing that you do is pick up your stitches. So let's get back to our original yarn color. So you can do this in the same yarn color here as it is shown. So when you're doing your pickup, the one thing that you have to be mindful of is that you're picking up your stitches right here in between the stitches, in between the two legs of your crochet. So as you can see, you pick up your stitches right here at this point, and then you work across. You pick up on every stitch, because even if this was a curved neckline, you would have already picked up on 3 stitches, skipped 1, picked up on 2 and skipped 1. So there's no need for you to continue with the skipping. At this point, you're just picking up your stitches on every crochet stitch. So let's pick up all the way to the end. I'll see you just now. Okay, so I've picked up a few stitches, as you can see here, and I used a very small hook. That's a 3.5mm hook, and this is 4.5mm fabric, so it feels a bit tight, but the best thing to do is to use a 4mm hook when you've done your knitting on 4.5mm needles. But as you can see, this is the knit line that you create here between your picked up stitches and your knitted work, so that that pickup line has this knit finish, and then you can continue with your ribbing or whatever knitting you have to do. I'll just show you this piece again. So I used this method here on this neckline. As you can see, this line here is very neat, and it gives it some form of steadiness that you won't have otherwise. And I also used it even on the pockets and the hem and the sleeves. So you don't see any pickup line anywhere on this construction. So if you want to do the surface crochet and you don't want it to show too much as it does on the first 2 methods, this is the best way to use this technique. So we're done with all the 3 methods of doing surface crochet on your necklines. I hope you'll be able to apply them in your own projects. Please let me know which one of these methods was your favorite and which one you're most likely to use on your own projects. So if you didn't watch it already, I recently shared a tutorial on how to bind off loosely, particularly in summer fabrics like this one. Check out the tutorial just now, and hopefully it will work on all your knitting projects. Thank you for watching. See you next time.